Namaskar. Today we shall talk about Mahavrat. We studied Anuvrat earlier. Mahavrat is in a way an advanced form of Anuvrat. Anuvrat, we permitted some relaxations in the observation of vows, but here in Mahavrat there is no such relaxation. The vows are observed in a full way, to the full extent, And because this kind of practice is difficult for householders, normally these are followed by ascetics, monks, Or in other words, the people who are desirous of following Mahavrat, they will take Diksha, they will become monk, they will renounce the household way of life. So Mahavratas are observed by ascetics in full way without permitting any kind of transgression. There are 5 Mahavrats again, and we start with Ahimsa Mahavrat. In this case now, the ascetic does not harm even one sense being. In the case of Anuvrat, the restrictions were on the tras beings, the beings which have 2 senses to 5 senses. The Sthavar Jeev or the immobile Jeevs have only sense of touch, So all the ascetics takes care to see that no being, right from 1 sense being to 5 sense being, is harmed by him. This is a very difficult task to do, For example, an ascetic walks on foot. He doesn't wear even shoes. And when he is walking, he looks ahead and takes care that he doesn't step on any insect on the ground. So he is very careful in walking. He doesn't walk on grass or any greenery for that matter, even in activities like placing things, lifting things, he is careful to see that no insect is killed or no harm is done to any living being. It's a very, very difficult kind of exercise. Then there is a Satya Mahavrat. He doesn't tell lie. In no case he will tell a lie, he will always speak truth. If you look into the causes of telling lie, what are the causes that a person speaks lie? It is mainly because of passions, of anger, ego, deceit and greed, So a person who is empowered by such passions, he speaks untruth because of certain reasons, because of his selfish interest. A ascetic has no selfish interest, He is a selfless person. So he speaks truth. He doesn't lie in any case. So he tries to be free from these passion in emotions, like he doesn't have any greed because he doesn't keep anything, He has no fear. He doesn't fear. He is not afraid of anybody in the world for that matter, And he doesn't have to deceive anybody. Why should he deceive? Because he doesn't need anything. He possesses nothing. He wants nothing, So he is free of all these emotions. Anger might be there to some extent, and that also is tried to control. He knows the technique how to control anger. So Satya Mahavrat is observed by an ascetic. Then Asteya Mahavrat, he observes self-imposed limitations on everything, Of course, as I told you, he has no possessions, so of course that limitation is automatically there. But even in terms of begging, An ascetic has to depend on householders for food. He doesn't make any, he doesn't have any occupation, he doesn't earn money. So for all his requirements like food and other things, he is dependent on householders. So he goes for begging. And even in this act of begging, he's very careful and he's very choosy. Choosy in the sense that, he doesn't like to have many kinds of dishes or many kinds of recipes, in his arms. So he restricts the number of recipes which is going to beg, He has developed an apathy to taste, about which we are mad, We want to eat this thing and that thing and so on for our own taste. An ascetic, has no liking or disliking for taste, and he restricts the number of items. He restricts, then he is very particular about the purity of food and drink, It must not contain any living being, or it must not be of life kind, And he is also restricting the quantity of food. It takes very little quantity. It doesn't eat like us. He takes very little food. Now, here I would like to tell you how the food is taken by ascetics. So there are two class of ascetics, in Jainism. One is Digambara tradition, another is Svetambara tradition. I'll first tell you about the Digambara ones, The Digambara saints live naked and they have nothing on their body, and they keep only two things with them. One is pichi. Pichi is made of peacock feathers, and this acts like a broom, So wherever he goes, if he places some object on ground, the first he will wipe the ground, and then he'll put the item there. So he has a pichi and a kamandal. A kamandal carries water with him, That is not for drinking. That water is for washing hands and so on. That's all. So he keeps only these two things. He has no vessel with him. So how does he eat? He eats, in a bowl which is formed by his palms like this. So he'll make a sort of a bowl with his palms and eats like this. So all the food items and drinks are poured in this bowl and he eats, That's the way he eats. So that, he has to restrict. Then he restricts the quantity, he restricts the quality, he restricts the number of items and so on. He exercises restraint on his taste sense, And as far as Svetambar monks are concerned, they wear white clothes, and they have some kind of vessels with them which they use for begging, So they carry a kind of a carry bag made of cotton cloth, and 2 or 3 vessels, which are made of wood, some kind of small vessel, So he goes for begging, and the things which are offered to him are put in those vessels, So he only 2-3 vessels, So and there are many varieties. If he goes begging 2-3-4 houses, every house will have a different kind of preparation which are offered, but he doesn't have so many vessels. So what he does, he takes, he keeps one vessel for, say for example, vegetables and curries, So all the things are put in one vessel. They are all mixed up, He doesn't bother about, he is not worried about the taste. The food is for body and not for taste, So that way, he also limits the places where he will go for begging. He will limit the number of recipes and he makes a choice, He doesn't, no monk eats green vegetable. That's number one, So they don't eat green vegetables. They don't eat green fruits. And they restrict the number of items in many other ways. So they follow Aste Anuvrat. But this means the number one, that they don't ask for anything, They don't ask for any kind of food or any other article. And they don't take any item which is not given. So Aste is followed completely, They do need some more items, Sometimes, they need, let us say, their specs are to be remade, for example, or they need some kind of medicines sometimes. But these are also offered by them. They never ask for it, So the householders take care of their requirements. It is their duty to see that, the monks are properly kept, they are properly fed and their requirements are properly met. So this is the duty of the householders. Then they follow Brahmacharya Vrat, Mahavrat, Of course, they don't marry. This is not to be mentioned. And but they even don't think of any kind of relationship with another person. Any kind of relationship for that matter. They are detached, completely detached. So they don't. This doesn't come in their mind or any kind of relationship, leaving aside the sexual relationship. So they follow Brahmacharya fully. Then Aparigraha Mahavrat. I told you they don't have any possession. They don't store things. They don't store things. Nothing is stored, not even food. They take food only for one time, and the next time if they require, they will go for begging again. So they don't store anything with them, and no other possessions. Sometimes they do keep some scriptural texts. This is the requirement. So they have a pen and pencil and something to write on, some paper, and some spiritual text. These are the things they keep with them, and that's all. And as I told you, the Digambars will have only Pichi and Kamandal. The Svetambar sadhus do not carry a Pichi, but they carry an Oga. Oga is a kind of a broomstick, It's a broom, cotton broom attached to, tied at one end of the stick, So they carry that Oga with them. That serves the same purpose as Pichi. They wipe the floor before putting things there. All Svetambar Munis wear white clothes. All female Digambar sadhvis also wear white clothes, Then, besides Mahavratas, I just now discussed about the 5 Mahavratas they observe. Mahavratas, they have an austere life, They have many ways of doing sadhana, upasana, and live an austere life, So in this sense, they observe certain rules which I have just written there, mention Gupti, Samiti, Dharma, Anupreksha, Parishajya, Charitra. These are additional rules these monks observe, and I will not go into the details of these things, but you see, they are very careful regarding their activities, with physically or mentally or verbally. They are very careful in speaking. They are very careful in their mental observations, and their physical activities are very, very limited. They don't use, let's say for example, silk. They don't use woolen clothes, and whether it's winter or summer, they will put up with whatever they have. And the Digambar sadhus, have nothing on the body, and they bear the cold, they bear the heat, and so on. So this is a part of their conduct, For equanimity of mind, the ascetics has, number 1, friendship with all creatures, He's friendly to every creature, not only human beings, all animals, or even insects, He will never hurt an insect, he will never hurt an animal. Living, of course, there is no question of hurting a human being. So he is friendly with all life forms, Then he appreciation for the superior, Pramod. So he always respects his superior. He gives due regards to his superior and his seniors, So the first thing in the morning he will do is to go and pay his regards to his seniors, And whenever he meets, he does it. Whenever he meets his senior, he will pay regards, So this is the way of life they have there. And they have sympathy for the afflicted, the karuna. They are very compassionate people, They have a compassion for every being, not only for their fellow monks, Of course, the monks look after one another. Remember, if they live in groups, then it is their duty to see that the other people are happy, or they are not suffering. If they are suffering, they help them. They help them the way they can, So they take care of the people who are living with them. Besides this, they have also compassionate views about other people. Even the people who are visiting them, their followers and so on, they will ask their well-being and try to help them as far as they can, because they are nothing with them, So they can only advise. They can only tell them, what to do and what not to do in order to get rid of the problems they have in life. So, and then they are indifferent to unruly. Sometimes it so happens that the people try to misbehave with sadhus, They are very rare, but such incidents are there. So the sadhus never react to them, They keep an indifferent attitude towards such people. They are indifferent, the madhyastha bhav, So they don't react. Even if you suppose somebody is, I am just taking an example, somebody is abusing a sadhu, or somebody is throwing a stone at sadhu, well, they just bear it, they don't react it, and they don't want that particular person should be harmed, It's not a law and order situation with them, so they will excuse him, and say that okay, it is your ignorance, you are doing it, and that way they take it. So this I have discussed in very brief the life of sadhus and monks and ascetics. Those who want to go in details of it, you can some details you'll find in my notes. Then we talk of another phenomena or process which is very important, Salekhana and Santhara. This concerns death. Death is inevitable, as we know. It will definitely come. How should we take the death? Should we take it as it comes, or should we be afraid of death? I mean, people like us are normally afraid of death. We are afraid of dying, We don't want to die. Of course, nobody wants to die. That's a different thing. But we have a fear in our mind, What will happen if I die? What will happen at the time of my death, and so on. These kinds of fear are mainly because of two reasons. One, we love our body. We don't want to depart with our body, We love our body. So we think that the body is a precious item, the body is a precious thing, and I must have my body, knowing fully well that the body is going to go one day. But even then, we have that kind of feeling. And secondly, many people are worried, what will happen after death, where they will go, what kind of birth they will have, and so on. So this is another fear, what will happen after death, But ascetics have no such fear, They are not afraid of death. They will take the death squarely, Come on, this body is not mine. They believe that, the body is not mine, and it goes, nothing goes. I lose nothing, if the body dies, because the body is not mine, This is the kind of feeling. And they are not afraid of the afterlife also, because they are doing so much of punya activity, and it's almost sure that they will have a good birth in the next life, But whatever it is, they don't desire for it. There is no desire. The desires are to be subdued, So they have no desire about these things, So they are fearless. In order that the death is peaceful, in order that the death it takes place with equanimity, there are certain procedures, which have been developed in Jain tradition. One of the thing is Salekhana. Salekhana is preparation for death. So a monk, this is for monks only, not for householders. So a monk will assess his span of life, and he assesses how much time may be left, and so on. So when about 12 to 13 years are left, he takes additional vrat known as a Salekhana vrat. And this vrat, is meant for two things. One, to weaken the body. So body is weakened gradually over a period of 12 years. And how it is done, I will explain to you. Another thing, to drive out the patients. The patients are the main enemies. So all monks and sadhu and sadhvis, of course they have very little patience as compared to us, but that also they try to over control, they control over, and they're trying to get rid of these things. So try to minimize these patients over the period of life which is left, So during Salekhana, two things are important. Number one, weakening of the body, and number two, weakening of the patience, Both go simultaneously. Both are objectives of life, of this vrat. Now, how does the body is weakened? Say, body is strong because of food. So you reduce the food intake. So gradually the food intake is reduced, so that this person feels energetic, but the body is weakened. The two things different. So even if the body becomes weak, he is energetic. Mentally, not physically. He is physically, mentally alert. His vitalities are present. So slowly the food is reduced in a systematic manner. First, the number of items will be reduced, then the quantity will be reduced, then the solid food will be reduced, then the liquid food will be reduced. Then he keeps fasting. He will take daily, then he will take alternate days, and so on. So there are prescribed ways of observing this Salekhana vrat. So he takes a Salekhana vrat and observes it over 12 years. And after 12 years, normally death is imminent. But if it is not, if he has to wait for some more time, then also is prepared, and there are ways to take care of these eventualities, which I am not going to go into those details. But he normally the period is almost over, and then he reaches the time of his death. When the death is imminent, then he takes another vow called Santhara. Santhara means now no food of any kind, all food is stopped. No food, no drink, nothing like this. So then he remains in that state, and this state lasts for normally it may be few hours or few days. In some cases it may be few weeks also. But then if he is alive for that long period, he is taking nothing, no food, no drink, and is still keeping alert, so that way. Santhara is also taken by householders, when the death is imminent. The Santhara vows is taken by the person who is dying, and he also leaves food and drinks then. It is only when the death is imminent, in the case of householders. So that Santhara then may last for hours or days, or normally it doesn't go beyond that, because you are able to assess that the life is no more and the vrat is taken. So I have described to you all these things. Santhara is not suicide, Salekhana is not suicide. Suicide is something different, A person, you can say that okay, he stopped taking food and so he's committed suicide. No, he's not committing suicide. Suicide and santhara or sanlekhna is an entirely different thing. In case of suicide, a person is under patience, he's under agony, and he commits suicide. So he suffers a lot during suicide. Whereas in the case of santhara, he has a mental peace. He's calm person. He's inviting death. He's inviting death himself. So take it. He is at peace when he's dying. He has a sense of equanimity, a feeling of equanimity, and he peacefully dies. He just leaves the body. Body is not his personal property. He just leaves it and the soul departs. So there is a vast difference between suicide and santhara. Lastly, I will talk about what is known as euthanasia. In some countries, not in our country, this euthanasia is practiced. That is, in cases where the person is very much ill and he cannot be cured. He is an uncurable disease. It's a terminal kind of illness which he has, and then he feels there is I should not live. There is no meaning of living because I cannot be cured, and he is suffering. Suffering a lot. Is agony. He is in agony. So in that case, the government permits the person also desires that it should be killed. So it's known as a mercy killing. In that case, it's according to government regulation. Otherwise, suicide is not permitted in any tradition. So either some lethal injection is administered and the person dies, or his medical support, health supports are withdrawn. So he dies. But euthanasia, according to Jainism, is suicide. So Jainism does not approve of euthanasia. It's suicide. So I just described to you today Mahabharat, how the Mahabharats are followed by ascetics, and the way the Mahabharata is followed, and I have briefly discussed the Vrata, Sanlekhna and Santhara with you. Thank you.